You ever sit in a quiet room? Number TV, no phone ringing, no voices, just silence. And suddenly, your whole life starts playing back like an old movie you never meant to watch again? Let me ask you something straight. What would it take for you to walk away from your own child? Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of pure survival? Because that's exactly what I had to do. And I'm 85 years old. I've seen wars, loss, love, and everything in between. But nothing prepared me for the day I realized my own son was the one person slowly breaking me from the inside out. And I know how that sounds. I really do. Because for most of my life, I believed something simple, something we're all taught growing up. Family is everything. You stick together no matter what. You forgive, you sacrifice, you endure. And I lived by that code like it was law. I gave that boy everything I had, not just money, not just a roof over his head, but time, energy, my youth. I worked jobs I hated, long hours that drained me, just to make sure he never had to feel the kind of struggle I went through. I remember holding him when he was just a baby, promising myself I'd always protect him, always be there. And for a long time, I was. I showed up every single time. Birthdays, school events, bad days, good days. You name it, I was there. But somewhere along the way, something changed. And I didn't want to see it at first. I ignored the signs, told myself it was just a phase, just stress, just life. But deep down, I knew. The respect started fading, little by little, replaced by something colder, something distant. Calls became shorter, visits became rare, and when he did show up, it wasn't to spend time, it was to take. Take money, take favors, take whatever he needed, and I gave it every time. Because that's what parents do, right? We give. Even when it hurts, even when it empties us out, we keep giving. But what nobody tells you is there comes a moment when giving turns into losing. Losing your peace, your dignity, your sense of worth. And that moment doesn't come with a warning. It just hits you quietly. One day you wake up and realize you're exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. Like you've been carrying something heavy for too long, and your arms just can't hold it anymore. And I remember the exact moment it all became clear. It wasn't loud. There was no big argument, no dramatic scene. Just a simple conversation, or at least it should have been. I tried to talk to him, tried to tell him how I felt, how the distance was hurting me, how I missed him. And he looked at me, not with anger, not even with frustration, but with indifference. Like I didn't matter. Like all those years, all those sacrifices meant absolutely nothing. And then he said something I'll never forget. Something that still echoes in my mind, sometimes late at night. He said, I don't need you anymore. Just like that, calm, casual, like he was talking about an old tool he didn't use anymore. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a thread snapping after being stretched too far. And I stood there thinking, when did I become disposable? When did I go from being his father to being nothing? And I went home that day, sat down in my chair, the same chair I used to rock him to sleep in when he was just a baby. And I just stared at the wall. No tears, no anger, just this heavy silence. And I asked myself a question I never thought I'd ask. How much more of this can I take? Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Love, even the strongest kind, has limits when it's only going one way. When it's not returned, not respected, not even acknowledged, it starts to wear you down. Slowly, painfully, until one day you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And that scared me more than anything. Not losing him, but losing me. And that's when I made the decision. Not out of hate, not out of revenge, but out of necessity. I decided to stop reaching out, stop calling, stop trying to fix something I didn't break. I decided to let him go. Completely. And let me tell you, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Harder than any loss, any hardship. Because when you cut off a stranger, it's easy. But when you cut off your own child, it feels like you're cutting off a part of your own soul. And for a while, it hurt like hell. The silence was loud. The absence was heavy. Every little thing reminded me of him. A memory, a place, even a smell. And I questioned myself over and over again. Did I do the right thing? Did I give up too soon? Could I have tried harder? Those questions don't just go away. They sit with you. They follow you. They whisper in your ear when everything else is quiet. But then, something unexpected started happening. Slowly, very slowly. The pain started fading. Not completely, but enough to make room for something else. Peace, real peace. The kind I hadn't felt in years. No more waiting for a phone call that never came. No more disappointment. No more feeling like I wasn't enough. Just calm. And in that calm, I started finding pieces of myself again. The parts I had lost while trying to hold on to someone who had already let go. I started taking walks, talking to people, even laughing again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not happy in the way people expect, but lighter, like I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. And that's when I realized something important, something I wish I had understood years earlier. Love doesn't mean you have to tolerate pain. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your well-being just to keep someone in your life, even if that someone is your own child. Because at the end of the day, you matter too. Your peace matters, your dignity matters, your life matters. And if anyone keeps taking that away from you, you have every right to step back, to protect yourself, to choose peace over pain. And I know some of you listening right now, you're struggling with this exact thing. Maybe it's not your son, maybe it's someone else, but you feel it, that emotional exhaustion, that quiet hurt, that constant question of whether to hold on or let go. And I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to tell you this. Don't lose yourself trying to keep someone else, because the cost is too high. And once you lose yourself, it's a long road back, if you ever find your way at all. Now here's the part people don't like to talk about, the aftermath. Because cutting someone off isn't a clean ending. It doesn't wrap things up nicely with a bow. It leaves questions, emotions, memories that don't just disappear. They linger. They resurface when you least expect them. Like when I see other fathers with their sons, laughing, talking, sharing moments that feel so normal, so effortless. And I won't lie, there are days when it still stings. Days when I wonder what could have been different, what I could have done better. Because no matter what anyone says, parent never stops loving their child. That love doesn't shut off like a switch. It stays, it just changes shape. It becomes quieter, more distant, but it's still there. And that's what makes this so complicated. Because you can love someone deeply and still choose to walk away. Not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself too. And that's a lesson that took me 85 years to learn. Too long, if I'm being honest. I spent decades believing that being a good father meant endless sacrifice, endless forgiveness, endless patience, no matter the cost. But what I didn't realize was, there's a difference between love and self-destruction. And I had crossed that line without even noticing. I was giving so much of myself that there was almost nothing left. And when you reach that point, Something has to change. Or you break completely. And I refuse to break. Not at this stage of my life. Not after everything I've been through. So I chose to rebuild, slowly, quietly. One day at a time. I focused on the things I could control. My routine, my health, my mindset. I started appreciating the little things again. The morning sun, a good conversation, a peaceful evening. Things that used to go unnoticed when my mind was constantly occupied with worry and disappointment. And over time, I realized something else. Something even more important. The relationship I lost didn't define me. It didn't erase everything I had done as a father, everything I had been as a person. It was just one chapter. A painful one, yes, but not the whole story. And that realization gave me strength. It reminded me that my life still had value, still had meaning, even without him in it. And that's something I want you to understand too. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you, not even by your own family. You are more than someone else's opinion, more than their actions, more than their absence. And once you truly accept that, it changes everything. It gives you the courage to set boundaries, to make difficult decisions, to choose yourself without guilt. And I know that word guilt, it's heavy, especially when it comes to family. It makes you question everything, makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, even when you're not. But here's the truth. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's necessary, because if you don't, no one else will. And I learned that the hard way. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Pay attention to how people make you feel. Not just what they say, not just who they are, but how they treat you consistently. Because that tells you everything you need to know. And don't ignore the signs. Don't make excuses for behavior that hurts you. Because the longer you do, the harder it becomes to walk away. And sometimes, walking away is the only way to move forward. I'm 85 years old now. I don't have time for things that drain me, for relationships that take more than they give. I want peace. I want clarity. I want to spend whatever time I have left feeling whole, not broken. And cutting off my son, as painful as it was, gave me that. It gave me my life back. And I don't regret it. Not anymore. So let me ask you one last question. Are you holding on because it's right? Or because you're afraid to let go? Because there's a difference. A big one. And your answer might just change your life. If this story spoke to you, if it made you think, made you feel something, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, talk about it, and tell me in the comments. What would you do in my place? Would you have made the same choice? Or would you keep holding on, no matter the cost? Because your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the most important changes. If you see even a small part of your own story in this, don't rush into cutting anyone off overnight, because real life isn't that simple, and emotional decisions made in pain can sometimes create new regrets. Instead, start by slowing things down and becoming more aware of your own limits, because most people don't suddenly break. They slowly wear down over time without realizing it. Begin by observing how you feel after every interaction with that person. Not what they say, not what you hope they mean, but how you actually feel in your body and mind afterward drained. Anxious, disrespected, or peaceful, valued, and calm. That emotional reaction is data, and you need to start trusting it more than excuses. Then, quietly begin setting small, controlled boundaries, nothing dramatic at first. Just simple changes like not answering every call immediately, not saying yes to every request, not over-explaining yourself. and not fixing problems that aren't yours to fix. And watch closely, because people reveal their true character when your behavior changes, not when you keep overgiving. If they respect your space, adjust their behavior, and meet you halfway, then there's something worth rebuilding. But if they push harder, guilt trip you, ignore your limits, or treat you worse simply because you stopped overextending yourself, then you're not dealing with love, you're dealing with dependency or control. And that's a completely different situation. Also, take time to rebuild your identity outside that relationship. Because one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in painful dynamics is that their entire sense of purpose becomes tied to one person. Start reconnecting with things that belong only to you. Your routine, your health, your interests, even small daily habits like walking, reading, or talking to people who treat you with basic kindness. These things seem small, but they quietly rebuild your self-worth. And when your self-worth grows, your tolerance for disrespect naturally shrinks. At the same time, be honest with yourself, truly honest about patterns, not promises, because people often say the right things in emotional moments. But real change shows up in consistent actions over time. Don't let temporary kindness erase repeated harm. Give space, give time, but don't ignore patterns. And if after all that, after patience, boundaries, and honest effort, you still feel consistently hurt, undervalued, or emotionally exhausted, then you have to seriously consider distance. Not as punishment, not as revenge, but as protection. Because protecting your peace is not selfish, it's responsible. Especially later in life, when time becomes more valuable than ever. And if you do reach that point, don't disappear in anger. Step back with clarity, with calm, with self-respect, knowing you gave what you could. Because closure doesn't always come from the other person understanding you. It comes from you understanding your own limits and finally honoring them. And one more thing that most people overlook: allow yourself to grieve. Because even the right decision can hurt deeply, and pretending you're fine will only delay healing. It's okay to miss them, to remember the good moments, to feel that emptiness. That doesn't mean your decision was wrong. It just means you're human. But don't let nostalgia pull you back into a situation that consistently damages you. Learn to separate memories from reality. And finally, remind yourself every day that love should not feel like constant struggle, and respect should not feel like something you have to beg for. The people who truly value you will not make you question your worth over and over again. So move carefully, think deeply, act with patience, but when the truth becomes clear, don't ignore it. Because the longer you delay necessary boundaries, the more it costs you in the long run. And your peace, your dignity, and your remaining time in life are simply too valuable to keep paying that price.